Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, September 16th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. San Diego County is nearing another COVID-19 milestone, 4,000 deaths. A recent surge involving more than 50 deaths, 11 more reported just moments ago. They serve as a sad reminder of the pandemic, yet there is promising news and hope when it comes to Delta cases and hospitalizations. Here's KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman.
Over a recent 7-day period, 57 coronavirus-related deaths were reported in San Diego County.
We have had higher numbers in the past, but the deaths typically lag a little bit behind the cases, so I'm not sure we're over the worst of it yet.
Dr. Mark Sire is an infectious disease specialist at Rady Children's Hospital who advises the state and federal government on its pandemic response. The deaths come after increased cases during July and into August, but just within the last few weeks, daily case numbers and hospitalizations are trending down.
I'm hopeful that we're over the immediate problem, but we will have another surge unless we get a higher percentage of our population immunized.
2.1 million San Diegans are now fully vaccinated, and within the most recent deaths, 80% of people were unvaccinated and nearly all had underlying conditions.
The vaccine is very effective at keeping you out of the hospital and dying, and so there are subgroups of our population that remain under-immunized, and those are the people who are getting sick.
Sawyer is part of a panel that's meeting Friday to advise the FDA on booster shots.
Tomorrow's assessment is a third dose a booster dose? Is it safe and is it effective?
While boosters are being recommended for the immunocompromised, healthcare workers, and the elderly, it remains unclear if they will be recommended for everyone.
Once you've got the primary vaccine, you're pretty well protected from getting put in the hospital and dying, but you can still transmit the infection. So if we learn that booster doses cut down that transmission or eliminate it completely, then we might give them to everybody so we can get over with this pandemic.
Since March, county data shows 96% of coronavirus hospitalizations and 88% of deaths have been among those not fully vaccinated. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And an FDA advisory committee is set to meet tomorrow to talk about recommending booster doses of COVID-19 vaccines. And as Mandy Gaither reports, it's still unclear what the committee will decide.
Dueling data. That's what's facing an FDA advisory committee ahead of Friday's meeting on boosters.
I just think that we need to let the FDA drive this whole discussion.
On one side, vaccine maker Pfizer citing data out of Israel and its own studies suggesting evidence of waning vaccine immunity. But other health experts believe boosters aren't needed now. Advisors will see this recently released document that says the benefit of boosters is likely limited if first and second doses are still effective. And earlier this week, 2 retiring FDA leaders wrote in The Lancet, COVID-19 vaccines don't currently show a need for boosting.
I don't think the question is, if we're going to get a booster shot. The question is going to be when.
The clock is ticking. White House officials have targeted the week of September 20th to start giving out third shots to all who got the Pfizer vaccine pending FDA and CDC authorization. Ahead of a decision, local health departments are planning for a potential booster rollout, but with some confusion. The CEO of an organization that represents local health officials saying, "We don't want to be unprepared. We don't want to appear uncoordinated on boosters." And no matter the decision on Friday, it's not clear how long a third shot would protect people.
We're just going to have to do the boost and then follow people long enough to determine what the durability of that protection is.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
And for the latest on the pandemic and resources, you can check out the Tracking COVID-19 section at kpbs.org. And that includes details on the vaccines, the latest case numbers, and our own local reporting. You can get there by clicking on the link you can find on our homepage. San Diego County has one of the lowest crime rates of any major urban area in the country, and that's been true for years. But KPBS reporter John Carroll says a new report reveals some areas of concern for our region.
When it comes to crime, San Dieg is the clearinghouse, compiling data from the region's 8 law enforcement agencies. There are several top-line takeaways from the just-released mid-year report.
The violent crime was up. It was up compared to both 2020 and 2019.
Property crime stats are a mixed bag.
Most crime is property crime, was up compared to 2020, but actually lower than it was in 2019.
Cynthia Burke is San Dieg's Director of Program Research and Management. Crunching numbers is her thing, and you'll notice she's comparing data from the first part of this year to both 2020 and 2019. And for that, you can blame COVID.
Last year was an unusual year, as we know, with the pandemic. So with this report, we looked at mid-year 2021, January to June, to both 2020 and 2019.
The murder rate is down over the first 6 months of this year at 48. That compares to 54 in the first half of 2020, but there were 38 in the first half of 2019. One especially concerning finding surrounds aggravated assault, specifically when it comes to guns.
Those were up 20% from 2021 to 2020. But even more telling is that the percent that involved a firearm was up 55%.
Apart from just being aware of what's happening in our community, compiling these numbers also helps people write grants for programs aimed at stopping various kinds of crime. And it helps law enforcement decide where to concentrate resources. All of it with the goal of making San Diego County a safer place to live for all of us. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A major milestone for San Diego in the quest for affordable housing. We are the first large city in California with a housing plan approved by state regulators. Mayor Todd Gloria's updated housing element in his general plan has been endorsed by the California Department of Housing and Community Development. The mayor says the approved housing element and the Homes for All of Us initiative pave the way for new homes at prices San Diegans can afford. The city has to plan for more than 108,000 new homes serving all income groups by the year 2029. A weekend-long event that provides resources to veterans kicked off today in Vista. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne takes us there.
Green Oak Ranch in Vista will become a place of healing for U.S. veterans this weekend. For the 5th year, North County Veterans Stand Down brings resources to one place. Clothes, food, dental and eye exams, legal aid, and overnight stays are just some of the resources available this weekend.
Backpack.
This is the first time Jamin Mamin is attending the event. He is a Vietnam veteran and served in the Navy.
I love it. I mean, helping the homeless vets and helping all the guys, get their lives together. That's what it's all about, because they put their line out there for people.
Stand Down organizers say this year the event is needed more than ever. Kelly Luisi with Homeless Veterans of San Diego says the pandemic caused more veterans to become homeless.
We're coming off such a difficult year with COVID and the eviction moratorium that we're seeing more and more homeless and younger veterans and more families.
When supporting services went virtual, many veterans on the streets couldn't access the help they needed. But here, help is available in person to get them on a better path. Like Ramon Madrigal, a retired Marine. He attended one of the first Veterans Stand Down events when he was homeless. His life has changed, and this year he returns as a volunteer.
I'm just giving back to what was given to me, and in any way I can help anybody who's been in a situation like myself. I'm going to try to do whatever I can to do it, and it means a lot to me.
The event is open to all veterans, their families, and their pets until Sunday at noon. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Military Recruit, the Disabled American Veterans Organization, held a job fair geared toward military veterans and their spouses. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has more on the opportunities available for local service members.
The military is my only job, so it's just kind of stepping into the world like, all right, so who am I? What am I going to do next?
Nisa Taveras enlisted in the military when she was 17. She's completed 6 years of service and is preparing for civilian life. It's a transition she's looking forward to, but says
it's scary.
But she's not alone.
The Navy's the only thing I've ever known.
Dozens of veterans looking for opportunities to continue their career were present at Thursday's Veteran Job Fair held at the Hilton Bayfront. Alan Von Plinsky with Recruit Military says this is their first job fair in San Diego since the pandemic, and interest is high. More than 300 veterans and military members registered for the job fair. A veteran himself, Von Plinsky knows what it's like to go through this transitional period.
Best way to experience it is get yourself in person with these clients and talk about your experiences and how they connect the dots to the jobs that they're looking for.
The job fair is free and open to all veterans active duty as well as spouses and dependents. More than 40 employers were looking to hire, from law enforcement to supply chain and construction jobs. Employers we spoke with say they're looking for qualities most of these vets have. Anthony Young, who's retiring after 22 years of service, says this job fair has given him hope.
It makes me feel a lot more comfortable knowing that there's a lot of job opportunities out there for us.
Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
Following the expensive failed effort to remove Governor Gavin Newsom from office, some Democratic lawmakers are calling for reforms to California's recall election system. Brandy Cummings reports on the changes they're considering and the opposition.
It's time for us to look at recall.
From the Secretary of State's office to the Capitol.
I think there are a good number of good ideas out there that will be a big part of the conversation.
Democratic lawmakers pushing to change what they call a broken system.
Well, I don't want to be specific about exactly how I personally would like to change it. I'm very troubled by that second question.
Democrats, Senator Steve Glazer and Assemblymember Mark Berman, both chairs of their respective election committees, say they want to reevaluate and update California's recall process. They say Tuesday's election highlighted the fundamental undemocratic nature of the existing recall process.
For me, the biggest issue is we currently have a process where a governor can be recalled and replaced by somebody who gets less votes.
The lawmakers plan to have hearings to get bipartisan input on everything about the process. Things like, should a governor only be recalled because of misconduct or corruption? Should the total number of signatures needed to trigger a recall be increased? And should the lieutenant governor take over in case of a recall instead of a replacement candidate?
I think all of those have pros and cons to them. That's part of what we are trying to begin the process of, again, in a transparent way, engaging with all who want to constructively participate.
A July PPIC poll showed 60% of likely voters said they support changing the process so a governor could only be recalled for illegal or unethical activity. But a California GOP spokeswoman doesn't want the process to change.
Our elected officials should be accountable to the voters they're seeking to serve. That's what the recall process allows.
She says it's frustrating that Democrats want to change the rules to suit their political agenda.
We're seeing more politics first, Democrat agenda first, over the people of California that they were elected to serve, and it's disappointing but not surprising.
Woodruff tonight on the NewsHour, French fury, how a new U.S. alliance angers a longtime ally. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
It is called critical race theory, something studied in law school as an academic framework that examines the impact of systemic racism on institutions and laws. But somehow it is now front and center in the ongoing culture war over what our children are learning in K-12 schools. KPBS's Jade Hindman explores what students are actually learning in school and how critical race theory is being misunderstood.
Schools are back in session and tensions continue to boil over at school board meetings when critical race theory is mentioned.
We do not want our children to be taught that America is systemically racist.
The furor is being fed by social conservatives and right-leaning media who say it's replacing the traditional teaching of history and social studies in K-12 schools. But that's not what's happening. In fact, if you're taking a class on critical race theory, you're probably in law school. Kiara Bridges is a UC Berkeley law professor and the author of a book called Critical Race Theory, a primer.
No kindergartner that I know is familiar with the Constitution. In fact, no 12th grader that I know has a baseline level of knowledge in order to engage with critical race theory. So critical race theory is not being taught in K through 12 schools.
So if critical race theory isn't being taught in K through 12 schools, what is the controversy? Well, as many schools incorporate a better understanding of the ongoing impacts of racism and bigotry in their curriculums, conservative activists are responding by pushing for sweeping bans to suppress education about race and American history.
Any conversation that proposes that race still matters in American society, that race has an impact on whether you live or die, whether you're sick or healthy, whether you are employed or unemployed, whether you get incarcerated or not get incarcerated. Any talk about race that is less than celebratory, that sort of says we triumphed. You know, we abolished slavery, and then we passed the Civil Rights Act, and we triumphed over our tragic racial history. Any talk that challenges that narrative, that suggests that we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to racial inequality, that's critical race theory, according to these conservative activists. And that's what they're trying to keep out of K through 12 schools.
Let's look at the Ramona Unified School District. The board there recently banned what they called 10 concepts about race from being taught in the classroom. As reported by the San Diego Union Tribune, the school board president said the goal is to make sure lessons focus on American exceptionalism.
The goal of banning critical race theory or the goal of banning ethnic studies is indeed to maintain this idea of a white, masculine, Christian American exceptionalism. And that's precisely what is so dangerous about these bans.
Sarah Clark Kaplan is a professor of ethnic studies and executive director of the Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center at American University. She says Ramona Unified's ban, and those like it across the country, are actually seeking to remove ethnic studies from the classroom to maintain the myth of American exceptionalism.
I think we can think of American exceptionalism as justifying, Andrew Jackson's crusade against Indigenous people, as originating the Trail of Tears, as suggesting that Africans who were kidnapped and enslaved were in fact being saved from their dark life in Africa. All of these deeply oppressive systems have their root in American exceptionalism.
Scholars argue that ethnic studies curriculums help correct the myth of American exceptionalism by highlighting the untold struggles and contributions of people who've been historically marginalized.
Once we can diagnose a situation and we can understand that we have a role to play in it, then we are then obligated to think about how to change the parts of it that we don't like. That's what ethnic studies does. How do you understand history, sociology, cultural production, and how do you understand how we can change it? That's the goal, not to make people feel bad.
And to that point, Bridges says it's time to move the conversation beyond erroneous terms and the manufactured conflict over critical race theory.
Do you want our kids to learn the full scope of American history, the good, the bad, the ugly, the unfinished? Do you want our kids to learn everything about this country, or do you want them to learn a myth about this country? I think that most sober thinkers would say, let's teach them everything, because that's the only sort of weapon we have against repeating the mistakes of our past.
Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
National Hispanic Heritage Month is underway with an awareness of a rich culture thriving in San Diego County and just across the border where Mexicans today celebrate their independence from Spain. There is more to these commemorations than festivities. KPBS education reporter MG Perez shows us a local college program helping Hispanic students to graduate.
22-year-old Mia Elias has a new laptop computer to help her complete work she's doing towards a master's degree. Last June, she graduated from UC San Diego with a bachelor's degree in sociology, accomplishments that started at Grossmont Community College with counselors and professors who looked like her and understood her heritage.
Grossmont's very diverse, and the program was so diverse that I felt safe asking for the help that I needed to ask for with them.
The Grossmont program is called Puente, puente, the Spanish word for bridge. Puente students are Latino and often the first in their family to go to college. They receive one-on-one counseling, mentoring, and classes in English proficiency. Mia's father comes from El Salvador, and her mother is Mexican-American. She says that's made her a target for discrimination.
It was scary, at least, especially knowing my dad was from El Salvador, and I mean, the whole migration with the Salvadorian immigrants, and it was just, I feel like now more than ever, that support is needed.
Mia celebrates Hispanic Heritage Month with her success story, a success she wants others to have.
Hispanic Heritage Month has a rich history of celebration and fun. It is that, but nowadays it is so much more, especially in a country so often divided along racial lines.
When we were trying to figure out an image for our elderly.
Vera Cruz Sanchez is an artist who contributed to this mural in Chicano Park. She's an author with advanced degrees in English and education.
Anything so far about the presentation that we're going to be doing today?
And she is a professor now teaching for the Grossmont Puente program, which she graduated from 20 years ago.
We need to tell our students that yes, they can go to school, yes, they can go to college, and yes, they can, more importantly, graduate.
And I would love to do like what Puente did for me, like for other students at a community college level, because I think that that's where students get lost the most, is when they're in community college.
It's clear Mia has found her calling and commitment to the community that needs her. MG Perez, KPBS News.
Thanks for tuning in to KPBS. I'm Marvin Gomez with your AccuWeather forecast. Let's talk about conditions here. In the next couple of days, temperatures are going to stay a couple degrees below normal for this time of year. And of course, the marine layer is also going to stay with us for most of our weekend. Next week, temperatures are going to be warming up a little bit, and we're going to encounter somewhat of an offshore flow across Southern California. Tonight, San Diego County, we're cooling